Well, let's hit the phone lines now and then speak to the PURC. Eric Obute is Director of Research and Corporate Affairs of the Commission, the Public Utility Regulatory Commission. So we understand really what this review can be attributed to. Hello, good evening, sir. Welcome to Eyewitness News. What necessitated this third quarter review?
Thank you very much. And a very good evening to your listeners. The PURC actually considered two main factors. One, to close up the gap between the customers in the residential class as well as customers in the industrial class. The cost of serving those two customers are different, and we want to bridge that gap and make sure that the residential class pays its true cost of serving them, whilst the industrial class also pays the true cost of serving them. Secondly, we also, just as you read, we also want to make sure that we maintain the real value of the tariff so that we don't get into the situation whereby we'll have to increase tariffs arbitrarily to very high proportions, which will be unbearable to the community. So that's why we're looking at this tariff review, this particular window.
I see. So what is the situation for very poor people who do not use a lot of power or a lot of electricity, if you like, because they are very poor? Is there a way that we are providing some safety net for them, and what is that really?
Yes, those very poor people that you describe are the ones that we consider in the commission to be the lifeliners. That is between 0 and 30 kilowatt hours of consumption. So if you consume between 0 and 30 kilowatt hours, which is like 30 units, that we may say, then you don't experience any tariff adjustment at all. You still pay what you are paying as of now. But once you go beyond that, then you have to pay a 4.2% increment in addition to whatever it is that you are consuming now. And this applies to only residential customers and not the non-residential customers who are the industries that we're considering.
I see. I also realize that you say some customers like hairdressing salons, barbering shops, chop bars, tailoring, and dressmaking people
Yes.
do not also, or will not also experience any change. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
But you know what is the threshold? Because we have very huge hairdressing salons who use a lot of dryers, and we understand dryers consume a lot of power. We have, as part of this group, people who operate cold stores. We have cold stores which are quite huge, consume a lot of power, etc. Why are you exempting them from, or why are they experiencing a 0% change?
The whole idea is to encourage industrialization, is to encourage growth, is to encourage employment. We deem it that electricity must be used productively and not just being used for social events. Yes, electricity can be used for social events, but it is much more beneficial if we use electricity for productive uses or for productive purposes. So the whole idea is to encourage industrialization and to encourage growth. That's the more reason why we are actually doing this reversal. And also, mind you, some of these industries that we talk about, their cost of serving them is much lower than the cost of serving the residential class. For you and I, the residential consumers, ECG or the electric utilities, right down from grid code through to ECG, they have to put in a lot more transformers and a lot more lines before they get to you and I. So they need to step down the electricity up to a point that you and I can use it at home. That's a lot more cost to them. Whereas for the industry, some of them can pick the electricity at high voltages, and it's cheaper serving those people than serving you and I. So why would somebody who is being served at a cheaper cost pay more than somebody who is being served at a much more expensive cost? So we are just trying to reverse this particular trend.
I see. So we're going to be experiencing these adjustments on quarterly basis. Is that correct?
That's very correct.
So should we also expect that when the conditions are better, the review will not always be upward, but we can have a downward review of the rates or prices like we see, in the downstream energy sector?
Precisely so. These four factors which I mentioned earlier on, that's the exchange rate, the inflation, the generation mix between thermal and hydro, and the cost of fuel. Once those four factors change in a positive direction, it will impact positively on the tariffs. Mind you, the last quarter or the previous quarter, second quarter tariff that we did, electricity prices went up by 18.36%. That was when we were using an average end user exchange rate of 12 cedis, 71 pesos to the dollar. This time around, we are using an average end user exchange rate of 11 cedis, 49 pesos to the dollar. So exchange rate, the Ghanaian cedi has appreciated against the US dollar by 10.6%. So at least that has brought the tariff down. What is the driving factor in this main tariff is the cost of fuel. That's the gas cost. The gas cost has gone up by a whopping 24.6%. And that is what has necessitated the drive up of the electricity tariff by 4.2%. Had it not been for the massive jump in the gas prices, it would not have even occurred that we should have a change in the tariff at all. So yes, the long and short, the answer is that once the tariff, the indicators show a positive direction, it will impact positively on the tariff as well.
I see. I realize that the inflation, you use a projected inflation rate of 10.49%, but we know the general inflation rate to be in excess of 40%. Can you explain to us why you chose to go with the 10.49%?
Okay, I tell you what we have is a quarterly inflation rate that you see over there. The annual inflation rate is what you're talking of, which is in excess of 40%. Yes, it's about 41.9, or now it's about 43% thereabout. So we split that into 4 quarters. So we divide that 40 or 41.97 by 4, and that gives you the 10.6 that you see over there. In the last or the previous adjustment that we did, the inflation rate was about 50.47. So when we split it, you'll get a region of about 12-point-something %. And that's, I think, is a region of 12.6%. So when you take that 12.6% and the current 10.49%, the difference is actually a downward trend of about 2.13%. So inflation has also dropped on a quarterly basis by 2.13%. So that also impacted positively on the tariff.
I see. So it only appears that the PURC just pushes to the consumer what the market forces determine. And given what, I mean, based on what the market forces say, the consumer may have to pay more or less. Is there no cushion, for example, for the consumer? Is there a limit to which the consumer can keep absorbing this? Or there's a way that you work with government to ensure that government absorbs some of these so that the consumer is not overly exposed?
Yes, the commission does not always just push onto the consumer what the market forces dictate. No. Remember, the last time round we did this tariff, the revenue requirement for the utilities, for the electric utilities, was about 1.31 billion cedis. And we pushed through about 870 million at the time, leaving a debt of about 450 million that we carried from the second quarter. Now, even for this third quarter adjustment that we are doing, the commission said, look, we cannot put all the 450 million debt. So let's consider only 40% of that. So 40% of the previous debt is what has been considered in this particular tariff regime. And also, the commission will not just give us any tariff at all to pay. We are mindful of whatever the economic situation is in the country. So the commission would actually go gradually, so at least it pushes the ordinary consumer. That's the more reason why you realize that for the case of the lifeliners, they've not been touched, and for industries as well, they've not been touched. But we need to also make sure that the utilities are financially viable to be able to generate the electricity and to produce the water that we need in our homes and factories. So we obviously have to do something, and it's better to do something now than to wait until we maybe give a quantum leap of about 30% or 40% increase in the tariffs. That would be very high.
I see. The concern generally is, and I'm not sure the PURC has a solution to that. I mean, income levels haven't grown. Here we are experiencing quarterly upward adjustments. of utility. So there is water, and now, I mean, there is power, which means that by the end of the month, household expenditure will increase. When income levels have an increase, of course, PURC may not have anything to do about that. But generally, of course, you also run a household, I guess. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I do have a household and I pay electricity bills just as any other person pays electricity bills. So I feel the pain as well. And on the board of the PURC, we have a rep from the TUC. So all these factors were brought over from the TUC as well, and they've been considered in the coming up of the tariff that the commission came up with. So it's not like the commission just sat and decided that, look, this is what must be paid by consumers. But the board also considered the socioeconomic conditions on the ground before coming up with the tariff. Just as you said, the commission does not have anything to do with wage openness or wage increases. So we do not actually play in that domain because that is not part of our jurisdiction. So we do not have anything to do with that one. But the TUC made a forceful case on the board, for which reason we even have a lower tariff as we speak. Had it not been for that, then that means that all the costs, if we just want to consider purely economics and purely finance, then all the costs that we incurred from the previous quarter should have been passed through. And that would obviously have given us a higher tariff than we see.
I see. Thank you so much, Eric Obute, Director of Research and Corporate Affairs at the PURC. Thank you so much